And welcome back to This is Dundermoose, a very special episode tonight. I have the man, the tribal leader himself, Jeffro Johnson is on. I've got BDubs 1776 on Twitter is back on the show, and it might be a spicy Cheeto tonight. We'll have to see. For those that may not know him, Jeffro changed how we understand D&D many times over now. Like first, with a deep dive into the literary history of D&D with his work on Appendix N, the list of influences that were in the back of the DMG that that inspired the game and really got, at least for my opinion, got me looking at it as D&D as a pulp fantasy simulator. Next up, Jeffro took on the challenge of playing AD&D 1E as a playtest of the rules, all the rules. And thank goodness he blogged his session reports, because he laid down receipts for how the forgotten esoteric rules, like one-to-one downtime adjudication, changed the game. It changed the world he was playing in, which was called Trolopulus. It changed the way that the players and the referee interacted with it and with each other. Following those rules led to discoveries like Patron Play and late last year Battle Braunsteins. He also has this book, How to Win at D&D. It's a slim volume that really goes a long way to recalibrating how the modern mind has kind of come to what this game is that we all know and love. So I'm really excited to have Jeffro on to talk about this stuff. Also, BDubs, BDubs if you've been watching this show for a while. He was in that original Trolopulus campaign. He went on to start his own Broasar campaign as well. And actually, I just played with this guy last night in Trolopulus, right? So a warm welcome from This is Dundermoose to our esteemed guests. And go ahead, take it away. Jeffro, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, let's start with Braunsteins.
Yes.
Way back in the late 60s, you have this new type of game, and it's notorious now what happened. There's 4 Braunsteins. Now, if I was going to be uncharitable, I would say like, sorry, David Wasteley, this is just a diplomacy variant. It's just a it's a diplomacy variant with play acting, and you didn't even have any rules for the stuff that mattered. So, like, why should we give you any credit for inventing anything?
Have you gotten any crap for calling what we do Braunsteins?
Not personally.
Okay.
Not personally, but you can see it on all the YouTube shows. There's of course this narrative push to reframe the Braunstein as being the first role-playing game. And now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? I don't. But then when everybody talks about it, you got a problem because nobody's played them, right? Like there's only one place you can go to play this game. Nobody else is playing them except 12 people, or 12 people that are refereeing them anyway. And so it's like, okay, what is this? Why would you want this to be the first role-playing game? Because my whole life, D&D was the first role-playing game, right?
That's the going knowledge,
right? And then one day you wake up and it's like, oh, Jeffro's been playing Braunsteins for 4 years. We got to do something about this. What are we gonna do? It's like, oh, so now, okay, you got guys playing a role, a single character instead of an army. Yeah. And now that's supposed to be the innovation, right? Yeah. That's supposed to be the innovation.
It was just war games before, and now not until the first Braunstein did somebody think, well, this one soldier is going to be the only one I focus on.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, okay, but the Braunstein is a weird game. Like, it's a weird game. It's really. I wish people could be honest about this, but people that don't play games can't be honest about this, and it's really frustrating. But it's a weird game because I like the fake out part of it. where you got the war gamers coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, yeah, we're just gonna pretend to play. We're gonna play this game, but there's a thing before the war game happens.
Yeah.
Let's just and just bear with me because it's a little bit free form, but like we're
We got
gonna
a
go.
little bit of business to take care of up front, and then the war game.
And 10 people just walked in. No problem. I just made up something for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
This moment, this is the great thing about this moment, and I think it ties in to my personal frustration every time I picked up a game that was designed in the 1970s, a role-playing game that was designed in the 1970s, and I think, what am I supposed to do with this? But like, just imagine this moment. This guy's got half an idea for a game. He's got 20 people that just showed up, 10 of whom he didn't plan for, and he's got no rules, and legendary things happen.
Yeah.
And everybody is like, we want to play that again.
Yeah. They lost their minds. It was so fun.
Right.
And he felt like it was a failure.
Yeah. And, and that's just what we call Thursday night today. Right.
Right. So it's interesting because Wesley has continued, or I don't know if he just started again recently, but he goes to cons and he runs what he calls braunstein. He runs Banania, and you can play those original ones he does. I would really love to get him on the show, or at least just talk to the guy and find out what he thinks about people using that concept with characters from their own ongoing campaigns, like we're doing in the BroSR. Because it seems like that's what it's for.
We should all be on panel discussions talking about this, because this is really big stuff. My question is why are you doing the same thing you did 50 something years ago? I mean, you were part of a group that had some of the best minds in gaming of the time. Each person in that group developed things that are go-to gaming ideas to this day.
Yeah.
And every couple of years, there was like some awesome new idea coming out of this group. It's like, I've been a part of a group like that. I know what it's like. It's exciting. It's like, why did you guys stop? Why did you guys stop? Why did you guys stop being this engine of new ideas? And then you go back and now you're just playing the same thing you did 50 years. That's my question.
What do you think about that, BDubs?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I am here. In fact, I know all of you are waiting. It's been almost 10 minutes. But I would never consider interrupting the tribal chief. Now, I ask that you all acknowledge him. Like Dundermoose said, he's brought so much innovation, revolution to the BroSR, to gaming, and to D&D. Maybe not tabletop RPGs. I think he'll define that later for you, because
we'll get into that.
Have the information to drop on you for that. But I want to jump in. I asked Dundermoose to let me in because I wanted to say something here about this part. It would be very, very strange, right? If you're going, I don't know, years on end, and you don't want to evolve the idea of what you're doing. Apparently Wesley's doing that with the Braunstein. He's just running the same thing. Okay, that's interesting. That's like going to, being like, one of the DCC RPG guys and going rerunning that funnel you've run 7,000 times. It has no impact on anything. What would be the point? The BroSR discovered you take it, you bring it to the convention, you bring it to the one shot. If for some reason you actually have some friends and they want to just play something for a night, and you can apply that to your campaign. That was a great innovation, but they don't want to evolve. And that's why I issued the Elite PC Challenge, because I feel like some of us don't want to evolve. And that's a shame. We don't want to be like David Wesley, okay, today. We want to be like David Wesley back in the day. So that's what I want to remind all of you. You can go back to Dundermoose's last broadcast. You want to hear all about the PC Challenge, or I'll talk about it a little bit later in the stream when we're into hour 8 or whatever we're going to do tonight for these people that will never hang up with this podcast. But I just want to put that out there. Jeffro mentioned they're still doing the same thing. I find that offensive. And in fact, I'm offended that some of the bros are still doing the same thing. And that's why I did issue the challenge. They need to step up. We've got guys coming from developmental, coming up from NXT, like Scooter for Mike, Night Danger, they're coming up and they're taking your spot, man. They're like Braun Breaker, and they're just smashing your head in and kicking you out of the company after they throw you at a bus. Is that what you want? That's not what I want for you. I like some of you guys. So get it together. Don't be David Wesley, and listen to what Jeffro has to say starting now.
Right on. So the reason I reached out to Jeffro because his blog has been absolute fire lately, and let me throw that up on the bottom of the screen here. He has been thinking hard about this stuff and saying some really challenging things. And so I wanted to have him get the chance to come on here and talk to you illiterate lot that only watch YouTube videos. You really need to be subscribed to this. You need to be checking it out. So what kind of started you on this kick about Braunstein versus RPG? While everyone else is focused on Braunstein leading to
Exactly
RPGs, how did you turn that corner?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look back at the history of the Bro SR, you know, we patron play was the big thing in 2021, 2022, and I sat down to pin how to win at D&D because I knew we had a hot story. I had to get something in writing to sort of plant my flag because you know, I mean, it was clear we had found something big.
Yeah.
But there was a very big problem, and I had a disagreement with the entire Bro SR over this, and that I thought our understanding of patron play at the time was very half baked, very volatile. We didn't really have it nailed down into a best practice, and so when I sat down to write how to win at D&D, you know, there's like, what order do you lay this out? Because, and this is something that ties into all of those fire blog posts that you know I've been putting out. Like, you know, Braunstein is the first Braunstein.
Yeah.
Tunnels and Trolls is the first RPG, and so on.
Braunstein is the least interesting thing about Braunstein.
Exactly. So, so those, you know, what I was doing is and this is not something that everybody else is that interested in. I'm like the only one that cares. You know, in 2021, you know, it's like, I still haven't figured out D&D yet, you know, and I know I haven't figured it out yet. And yet you guys want to go off and Bro SR all the games. And it's like, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to take a half-baked idea to all these other games. It's not time yet. You know, like, you cool your jets. You know, every month we find some new discovery in the pages of the DMG that nobody has really looked at seriously. And when we get all this great results from it, like, why are you in a rush to go play some game that isn't D&D? So you know, so when I was sitting down to do how to win a D&D, I'm I think from like a mathematical standpoint, and you know, this has been bandied about lately quite a bit, because you know, the D&D, for instance, you may have heard people talking about how D&D is going to add like microtransaction stuff to some kind of virtual tabletop, you know. And so that leads to the question, you know, well, what is D&D? So you've got the new haters rising up to say, like, that's not D&D. This is where we draw the line. That's not D&D. And you know, I love seeing that hate. You know, I didn't think I'd see a millennial that could hate a corporate product that much and be that articulate about it. I like seeing that trend. But you know, but like that line has been already been crossed many times over, right? And so sitting down to pin how to win at D&D, you know, what I was looking for is, what are the axioms that define this game, that if you change them or leave them out, you end up with a different type of game. So these are ideas that are so fundamental. I'm not going to give you a digression into the parallel postulate, you know, of geometry, but you know, if you know, you know. And these rules are like that. Like, if you change them, you get a different game, right?
Yeah.
And getting back to your question, why Braunstein? I had an epiphany when I sat down to write that, because I'm obviously most well known for rediscovering one-to-one time. I don't think I play it quite the same way that the designers of that either Gary Gygax or the designer of Takumiel, the Empire Petalthrone, did. I don't do it the way they did it. I do something else. But go on with that. But no, we had always had a frame of like a one-to-one time is like this foundational idea. And when I sat down to write, I'm like, no, it isn't.
Oh, okay.
One-to-one time is not the fundamental idea. I looked back at the history, and it's like, no. The reason that we are excited about one-to-one time is because when you embrace it, and when you follow through with it, and when you're very strict about it, your game ends up turning into a Braunstein.
Yeah.
Right? And the Braunstein is the thing that makes it fun. It's because, and I'll tell you why it makes it fun. I'll go ahead and tell you why. Because every single DM that runs RPGs in the conventional way is nicey nice. They are all the nicey nice SR. And because you have
and their
to give,
players are nicey nice to them as well.
Oh, well, the players, as a result, they go get along gang. Right? So you've got a nicey nice referee, and you've got a get along player group, and then you've got decades of like, yeah, I just made this challenge for you. Yeah, the bad guys have a challenge rating because it can't be, it's got to be the Goldilocks zone. I can't have anything in the campaign that's too hard. I can't have anything in the campaign that's too easy. It's got to be everything's got to be just right.
You always have to finish the campaign on your last hit point, right?
Yeah. It's disgusting. It's like, how do you guys get together week after week and pretend that this is fun? I don't think you do.
I'll take that a step further. This a step further. The one-to-one time does turn your campaign into a Braunstein. And where people fell down as patrons and as players that made levels, and even as players that wanted to do a little downtime play, like fiddle around, go some shopping, grab an army, where it fell down is where they didn't have their mind on the Braunstein. Okay?
Yeah.
What they had their mind on is, let me use my downtime so I can come back together with the group, and then we can all have this extreme amount of resources to go smash the DM, the poor, bedraggled DM who can barely make it in time. He can barely handle to roll some prep in session while they all yell at him.
2 chapters each time before.
He's just not doing anything. But I'm talking about even these current games. And these games, while he said he didn't put patrons in his book, that surprised me at the time, but it seems kind of obvious in retrospect. Because what the reason when patrons would fall down is when they're not thinking Braunstein. And a simple way to say that for the modern thinker is like PvP. You're not thinking PvP. Okay.
Yeah.
All you're thinking is, let's get along gang at name level. Oh my goodness. If you think get along gang is boring in a dungeon, if you think get along gang is boring smashing some lairs in the wilderness, put it to name level. Have the get along gang be the patrons. And you've got the most boring thing. And not only that, but they will take the boringness and they'll just like cover it on the campaign like a blanket and just suffocate the fun out of it. And that's where things had problems. And I would try with Dubs Run to say, look, guys, this is not right. We didn't have the term get along gang at the time. Jeffro coined that, which is I coined most of the terms in the Bros Hub. I coined that one. And we didn't have that term. And I was trying to tell them, like, Dubs are on players and patrons and people who got like 5th level and up. And I'm like, you need to start figuring out ways that there's some interest here. There's some intrigue. There's some excitement. We also weren't using Braunstein as like a catch-all either. Or there's going to be problems. So I'm going to put punishment on you. I was trying to hold off from flipping the table. And there was some movement towards that, but mostly the guys who just could not accept it, they rage quit Dubs Run. That's what they ended up doing. So I think it's just sticking with us today. And we need to focus on how one-to-one time creates and allows a Braunstein to develop, and be sustained in the campaign and allow like weekly Braunsteins, monthly, quarterly, whatever, because the 1-to-1 makes it set well in a real campaign, whereas variable time makes it impossible. But bad players doing 1-to-1 time can also make it suck as well.
So from what I'm hearing the both of you say, 1-to-1 time is not the axiom. The Braunstein is what is at the heart of this, but 1-to-1 time, once you adapt it, it kind of shatters the spotlight, and it just subconsciously makes the players hold each other at arm's length, because it's always on the table that you may have to compete instead of cooperate.
The great thing about 1-to-1 is that it forces you to stop doing things that are objectively bad. No, and it forces you to learn how to run a campaign. Because and you can see it on these like debate shows and stuff where, you know, it's like sandbox versus narrative. If your players have total autonomy and you're running 1-to-1 time and they can move around on the map wherever they want to go, and there's random encounters and stuff like that, then you are on your way. That is a great place to start. You probably, if you've come up into conventional types of thinking, then you probably just need to stay there a while, is my opinion. You know, unless you're just, if I leave an opening, well, if you're really elite, then you could probably go. And then everybody's thinking, oh, he must be talking about me. No, I'm not talking about you.
No chance he's talking about you. Okay? No chance.
Yeah,
if you would like to know if you're elite, reach out to me, private message me. I will tell you if you're elite or not. You might not like the answer you get. That's why I don't go around telling everybody on these podcasts. But I will be honest, even if it makes you mad, just like the Battle Braunstein ratings with the star ratings. It might make you mad. It might make you angry. But I'm being objectively honest. And I'm pretty much right, because I've been doing this a long time.
No, I will say, Dubs, there's been times over the past few years where, where I get like a bee in my bonnet, and I'm like, I've got this idea and I've got to do something, and then nobody's ready for it yet. And then, it takes a year for people to be like, oh yeah, Jeffro was right. He's an asshole, but he's right. Like right now, I think it's very important. I feel like Dubs can see across of a horizon that I'm not ready in a position to see where I see what he sees yet. So this is a very new experience for me.
I'm seeing on a different level. That's why I am the tribal council. I'm the wise man. I'm just in the back. I'm a consigliere. Okay. Yeah. That's why we're in the back channels discussing these things at times. And even when I don't quite see where he's going with the Braunstein, when he first wanted to push the Battle Braunstein so hard, so crazy, I wasn't one of those ones saying, "Oh, no, it won't work." How do you know it won't work? How do you not know? Like, why don't you trust this guy to just do his spear and knock it out of the park? I don't understand why there's so much doubt at this point. I get it. Early on, 2020, I was hard on him. Okay, I was there. I was in the back channels. I was testing everything. I was saying, well, I don't know about this 1-to-1. I don't know about that. I was trying to play devil's advocate, because that's what the wise man does. Okay, that's how the consigliere works. You try to help him find out where it is before he goes public with some of these ideas. But with the Battle Braunstein, I wasn't quite there and getting it back in last fall. But I knew there's something here. This has legs. And now that I've been playing as a PC in more of these games the last couple of weeks, oh my goodness, do we need Battle Braunstein, because I am bored.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my idea was that the session Braunstein type thing, the Battle Braunstein, that would be like a special event that maybe once a quarter, where we have the energy or the desire to do it. But Dubs is saying, no, that's not enough. This should be like, what if this is something I never thought of? It's like, so I'm like, I'm not prepared to even think about this. I don't even know what to say about it yet, because I'm like out of my book now because of this new idea. But no, Dubs is saying, he has suggested on the back channels, what if every session was a session Braunstein? Not just like the Elite PC Challenges is like, what if every PC in the game was pushing for something like this to help
trying to tip the scale into
existence?
Yeah.
Which sounds, man, I'd love, and it sounds like not once a quarter, like that one. It sounds like no, something should blow up in a few weeks. If it's a long running campaign, But no, he's gone even further and saying like, no, what if every session was, which now like let's do a contrast, a tale of two games.
All right.
To illustrate these points here, and it goes. Everything goes back to Mephitis. The guy does not get enough credit, so I'm going to do it right now. We wouldn't be talking about elite PCs at all if Mephitis hadn't said that the elite level power gamer was a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. And this triggered all of Reddit somehow when he had this Twitter thread on this topic. But no, let's look at two games. The first one is Tunnels and Trolls, and Tunnels and Trolls. It's got some neat ideas in it. One is all the attributes mean something, and it's got an interesting spell casting system. It sets up a relationship between rogues and magic users, because rogues are kind of like mediocre magic users, and they can only get spells from other PC wizards in the game. And so the wizard characters are spending all their money to get new spells, and then they're selling spells on the side to the rogue characters, and I don't know, it's totally off the wall. I love, and I will say this to all the losers that are making retro clones right now. It's like, why can't you make a game as interesting as Tunnels and Trolls? It's such an interesting game. Every single piece of that is original, and it's not a ripoff of something that he saw in D&D. Even the combat system. The combat system is incredible. Let's see, tired. Do we want to do individual initiative, or do we want to do group initiative? Who cares? Who cares? What if both sides roll a ton of dice at once, and the side with the bigger number wins? How about that? Come on.
Yeah.
So the impetus for this game. The impetus for this game is a poor benighted soul living in where was it? Nevada, Arizona. Where was this group? Phoenix. And come on, guys, chat. Where are you?
Yeah, come on, chat. Anybody that knows about this game.
So he looks at the original OD&D books, and he's like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I don't understand any of this. And and of course, we know exactly what he feels, because we've been looking at this thing for 40 years, and we're still finding stuff in it we don't understand, right? To this day. And so he looks at it. He's like, I know that D&D is this thing, and I know that everybody is into it. And I know it has a cult following, but I don't have someone around to initiate me into how this works, because nobody learns RPGs from reading. Yeah. Because everyone since 1975 has been illiterate. Everybody learns RPGs, like even Dunder. Even Dunder, after reading all of my session reports, did not know how to play D&D. It took a long time.
It's true.
Of seasoned players taking him under their wing and telling him, your downtime actions are garbage.
Yeah, if he would have been reading my session reports, he would have learned.
Yeah.
I'll read them one day. I'm just kidding. I've been reading those too. And if you guys want to as well, I'm throwing that banner up down here on the screen. BDubsandDragons.blogspot.com.
All day.
But no, Ken St. Andre basically invented basic D&D. Because the idea is, okay, you roll up a character. The only thing you can do in that game, if you just take it at face value, is go into the tunnel, which is the dungeon. And he doesn't give you any random tables to stock it. He's like, bro, just make it up. And he just turns people loose in this dungeon, and that's the game. You got a combat system, you got a magic system, you can roll up a character. I love it. The monsters are one number. One number tells you everything you need to know about a monster. And but no, but this idea, it's exactly point for point the same thing as Holmes Basic, Moldbay Basic, Mincer Basic. It's basically the same idea. Just give me this little piece of this game. It's the only part I think I can understand, and the only part I think I can do. And you think about role players that just stay there forever. Like I don't know, the OSR who stays there for. Why did they stay there forever? I go turn that to Dubs. Dubs, why did the OSR stay at basic D&D forever? Why did they do that?
Primarily they're sodomites, but additionally from that, they just can't accept the fact that there's more to this game. Okay. The OSR is full of DMs. Okay. Most of the people in D&D, when you meet the gross nerds or the geeks, as I call them, they are guys who are socially maladjusted. Okay. And they have power fantasies that they have to play out with their PC. The OSR thought that they had some great evolution by flipping that on their head, and they were the DMs with the power fantasy. So it's like, yeah, come into my dungeon, I'll beat you up, I'll smash your PC. And they've done that for a decade. And at some point you would think that maybe they would do some introspection and realize that that is boring. It is boring, okay? A deadly session once in a while for a couple of level 1 guys that you just smash with orcs or whatever. That's fun once in a while. I've done it. We've all done it. It's fun. But to do it for a decade? Do you have any insight, guys? Do you have anything that you're trying to go with this? They're not going to come up with anything like a braunstein because they're stuck playing whack-a-mole with PCs. And then they have some sort of weirdo masochistic PCs that want to do it. It's freaky, man. I honestly, it reflects a lot about their personal failings and their spiritual issues, honestly.
Would it be fair to say that the OSR guys were dissatisfied with current D&D, whatever it was at the time, 4 or 3.5, or I can't remember. I'm new to all this, but
I would say the OSR guys were dissatisfied.
Yeah, they're dissatisfied with the late thing, and their solution was reductive. Let's cut off the stuff we don't like, and that will get us back closer to the original. Is removing stuff, not necessarily innovating based on the stuff that had already been removed.
Yeah, that's the part I never understood about them. Because that I got all the ideas for doing Appendix N from OSR blogs like James Malazewski's, Grognardia, Jeffrey Ent's blog, his game blog, very inspirational to me. And I looked at those and I'm like, wow, you guys found some really cool stuff. Why isn't anybody else excited about this? Because I sure am. And but yeah, I don't know. The mainline OSR was just like crickets,
Yeah.
Whoops. And then and so the this other thing, like for me with D&D, there's all these parts of the game that I never understood, that I never imagined how to play, and the OSR like unlocked a lot of interesting things for the lower level parts. Like the idea of doing a hex crawl, of using the map from the outdoor survival game and wandering around on that. Like I didn't think that could work. I was just like all the people you see on these debate shows. Like how could that work? You players could just move around, and even especially Philotomy, I think was very tremendous person to give you permission to play the game. When he came up with the idea of the dungeon as mythic underworld, it was like, oh, I don't have to have every single 10 by 10 square on the map be something realistic that makes perfect sense. Like it was like, oh, we could literally just like use our imaginations to kind of create this weird kind of unsettling environment that kind of functions according to its own laws, which was really exciting.
It's rarely discussed. It's rarely discussed that Jeffro's book Appendix N is kind of a love letter to all the good OSR thinking at the time that he wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay. I recognized a lot of the references in there because I was just devouring those blogs at the time. And then for them to like go against him, it's disgusting. They go against him. They didn't accept it. They didn't understand it. They didn't want to take it because they're not right wing, or they think he's like this right wing weirdo, or they call him all these isms or whatever. It's pathetic, honestly. And they should understand it. And the fact that they wouldn't follow him into this next evolution when he discovered some of this new stuff and saw these things in 1E that we've all said, wow, this is great. Let's play with this. And we've had so much fun while they're still stuck playing whack-a-mole with their PCs and giggling about it on stupid podcasts that I have to sit through.
Well, there was a comment on my last video when you guys were doing the Braunstein reviews, and I'm going to butcher it. I'm not going to get it word for word, but basically said this is everything that's happening right now. Like the BroSR is the place where innovations are happening in the game. Everything else is like has become calcified.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did it by going backwards. We innovated by going backwards, which is why would that be? Like, why would that be?
So Bradford Walker in the chat says all OSR play is done better by video games. And if you guys haven't,
I'll take this one because Jeffro hates video games with a fiery passion, and he will just say something horrible about video games, and then start talking about Zoomers, and then he'll just insult Zoomers. For
we're not saying video games are good. We're just saying that the OSR style is done better by them.
Well, there's a video game called Darkest Dungeon, which Ogma put me onto. It was great. I was playing it right around the time Trollopulus came out. So it put me right in the right mindset to sort of delve those dungeons of the early, when we were low level, trying to do things in Trollopulus. And he's right. Darkest Dungeon did dungeons better than Jeffro did dungeons. And that's even that's the BroSR. And we do dungeons better than the OSR. The OSR doesn't even do dungeons. They do some weird, wacky, let me kill your PC and giggle about it like a girl junk. It's just horrible, exhausting, and stupid. So even Jeffro couldn't stand up to just regular old like dungeon delve and kill your PC stuff. Bradford Walker's right. If you are trying to let me try to delve, let me do a roguelike or whatever, the video game's going to do it better. I've said it for years. The thing about 5e, but this applies to all D&D really in some ways, is if you play it in the conventional style, all it is video games, but slow. That's it. And who wants to, like, imagine playing a video game, but like, imagine you're playing this Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever. I don't know who would play that or why, but people are playing this stuff. Imagine if you had to sit there during each fight for like 20 minutes while the dice were rolled, as opposed to the 5 seconds it takes or whatever. So stupid. Why would you spend your time doing that? And not only are you bored, but then you're like looking around the table of 3 to 5 people. All right, let's be OSR like 2 people. That's how many friends they have. That's how many people you're looking at, and they have to do it too, and you have to wait through it. So video games are the right answer for people who just want to go do dungeon delve and get the ruby. That's what video games are for. Real D&D is something bigger. It's something social. It's something ingrained in our psyche. It's something in our blood as men to play war games where we scheme each other, rip off each other, and do things more like the War of the Roses rather than get the ruby.
There is no other experience that I've had in gaming like the thrill that I felt when I realized that I was fooling another player from a rival party when he came to me for information. When I was playing Foam the Gnome, I was glued to my phone waiting to hear how that session went when I put my character in Jeffro's hands as the DM. And there nothing like it.
That is a really great example of why conventional role-playing games are terrible, and that is because the DM will never put a player in a situation like what Dunder did to Goldenrod. There's no module that has a situation like that, because you could never everything about it was, there was about 10, 20, 30 different things that kind of converged. We had these players who had been captured by the evil wizard in the dungeon and had come back as a NPC cult, and these were Dunder's. These were Foam the Gnome's friends.
Yeah, he
And,
didn't realize what had happened to them all the way.
but they're tasked with getting these dragon eggs that came from a totally stupid session that was made just to entertain a group of people I didn't even know face to face. I couldn't throw them in the deep end. I had to give them sort of an escape room type game where they could figure out like, oh, this is how D&D works. I see it. And so like they did the A-team thing, and they went to Boot Hill and had a blacksmith figure out a way that they could make crossbows that shot dynamite sticks, and they concocted this really elaborate plan to go kill the adult dragon that was terrorizing the Indians of this world they had traveled to. And so they had come back and they had 5 baby dragons with them. And then we had players. We had one elite player who was like, "Oh gosh, what would I do if I was like actually in this situation?" And all my friends in my cult were trying to get these eggs, and I wanted to help them. And so he comes up with this crazy plan, this crazy plan, and he didn't get to. I got to see the moment. Because I had this guy, and he'd been burning up my phone with downtime activity suggestions for every day. He would text me every day about this game, and so he comes in, and I told him, I was like, look,
you should have made him pay for your phone battery.
Yeah, I was like, look, you're not going to keep those eggs, dude. Something happens, and it's going to happen in downtime, and it's not going to be fair, and we don't even need to play it, but you're not going to keep those eggs. And he's like, well, don't you think we should roll some dice to determine that? And I was like, all right, you asked for it, you're going to get it. So we're at this game store a week later, and Dunder had given me this plan. And he's at this tower, and the eggs are in it, and I'm like, okay, so there's these cult women that are coming to protest, right? And immediately he's terrified.
Yeah,
it's like he knows what a dumb PC plan looks like. Because I've run games for him where his group came up with the dumb plan, and then holy cow, it worked, right?
Yeah.
And then so like as soon as these women show up at the tower and they're carrying baskets, he is like, I'm in a dumb plan.
I'm in the middle of a dumb plan.
There's no way I can win. And he was terrorized. So we're not going to recapitulate that whole thing, which was like some of the best gaming ever.
It was awesome.
Dunder did to him what no dungeon master and what no module could ever do for anybody. And it nearly destroyed this man. It was very, very difficult. And it all goes. And what did it go back to? What was the key thing that caused this to be so engaging, so immersive, so terrorizing, so incredibly mind-blowing that he's going to text me every day for a month asking me about it, right? And it goes back to the definition of Braunstein, which none of these talking head shows can do when they're like, oh, Braunstein's the first role-playing game, blah, blah, blah. No, it was multiple independent parties acting under fog of war. That is fun. D&D modules, not fun.
Well, because the original Braunstein was straight up competitive. It wasn't get along gang at all.
Oh no. Well, I want to digress to what he said. Okay. He said it nearly destroyed this man. It nearly destroyed this PC. It nearly destroyed him.
No, it did. It destroyed the PC.
It actually destroyed the PC. It actually destroyed the player. He rage quit because no one gets bored of Brosar games. They rage quit. Okay,
Yeah,
because these games are
not boring.
interesting, engaging, and immersive. But what you've got here is the PC experiencing one time what a DM in conventional campaigns goes through every week of these idiotic freaking plans. Okay,
That's right.
You have to put up with these stupid plans, and you have to try and figure out, okay, well, my enemy that they're going against is really, really smart. He's super smart. He's a vampire or whatever. He's like extra smart as per 1E. How would they handle this? Well, there's no clear way to handle it. And then you start thinking of the just right Goldilocks thing of I don't want to make the vampire too smart. That would be unfair to PCs. Screw the PCs. The PCs are unfair to the campaign, coming with everyone's decked out in +5 everything. Everyone's got 7 holy waters.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's what I'm saying is he went through one thing that a conventional DM goes through, and even a Brosar DM sometimes when they come with these fire teams of death, and it destroyed him.
Yeah. Dornall in the chat asks, AD&D leveling system is predicated on getting the ruby. How do we get from there to incentivizing the Braunstein domain games? Did you want to take that one, BDubs?
Yeah, I'd like to take this for a second.
All right, BDubs first, and then Jeffro.
Well, I want to hear what he says about the actual rules because he's read them more closely than me. So I'll let him take
AD&D leveling system. AD&D leveling system is predicated on playing your role. So I'm done. That's all I got to say.
So you play your role, and you're not going to get the bad grade. Now you start thinking about, gold for XP or ruby for XP. I'm going to get the ruby. Okay, you don't. You go to the first edition player's handbook, and I get what Dornall's saying, and I was talking about this with some other people of when I'm seeing these PC games where I'm getting bored because there's not anything dynamic happening. It's just get the ruby, get the ruby. Mm-hmm. And this last Trollopulus session, we were like, let's get the ruby. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a boring plan. And then we get there, and there was no ruby. So we spent all this time doing something boring, and we didn't even get the ruby. So it was like a double dip of boring and stupid. It was
I wasn't bored. We fought 7 of those big 4-legged bird things, man. I was terrified.
I wanted to jump off my roof. I was so bored. So we just continue on. How will you incentivize Braunstein domain game? First off, I gave you the Elite PC Challenge. Okay, the Elite PC Challenge is you prove with a tweet, or you show your DM who will then tweet, because all Brosar DMs need to be online somehow. They don't have to be extremely online, but they need to be online. And you will get 15% bonus XP for your 4 sessions following July 4th, the birth of our nation. If you don't do it, you lose 25% XP for your 4 sessions following our Braunstein. That's not, you don't skip a month and you don't lose it. It's the 4 times you show up.
That's right.
You dirty dog. So don't try to pull a scheme where I'm not going to show up in July. I'm just going to go on to the beach or something. No. That's not how it works. Nah. So,
and I've got to say that has changed how I think about how I'm playing. And in the chat right now, live, and if you're watching this later, put in the comments how BDubs challenge has changed the way you think about how you're playing your game.
Literally none of them will do it because I've only had 2 people reach out and even say anything about it. They're like a level 1 PC and a level 2. Once again, the guys coming up from developmental are the only ones even taking this seriously. Okay, our NXT guys, Scooter for Mike and Night Danger, are the only ones taking this seriously. They're the only PCs that are trying to be elite. Okay, they got a fire in their belly. They're ready to do it. They want to hit the ring. They want to fight Cody Rhodes. Okay, they want to fight Roman Reigns. They want to try. On the other hand, we got these guys that are like hanging out in the mid card, that are like been bros for years, that just want to like chill out. They just want to keep carrying their little mid card belt around. Whatever. Keep doing that if you want, but take your 25% hit in July, my friend. But let's move on to how do you incentivize it? How you incentivize it is AD&D. What is a Battle Braunstein? I'm going to take this land from this other dude. Okay, stuff like that. I'm gonna take this land. I'm gonna get in this cool situation where I'm gonna have a new library to do my research and my spells. You got was it Mike or Danger? I don't remember. Of the necromancers now got a place where he's gonna raise up skeletons. Are you telling me right now that is less interesting than get the ruby and the XP?
That's right.
Do you have blood in your veins, my friend? If you were in the women's division, I'd say that's fine. That probably does inspire you because you're in the women's division. But if you're a man with testosterone and red blood, being the necromancer who gets the place to raise the skeletons out of the temple, that is so much more interesting than getting some XP for one more level. It's not even close. Okay, so yeah, AD&D incentivizes get the ruby, get the XP, but it also has residual income and stuff in it. Okay, if you play a Battle Braunstein, let's say once every 3 months, you can go back and then like retcon, hey, I had 3 months, I got some income. I'm going to use that income to do blah, blah, blah for the next Battle Braunstein. You don't have to play even daily adjudication if you're like just doing spell research or raising up skeletons or something. It just gets you ready for the next Battle Braunstein. You can raise up to the next scale. You don't have to be the 5th level Battle Braunstein anymore because you raised a bunch of skeletons. You can be the 7th level Battle Braunstein.
Yeah.
You know, you can do, you got to think outside the box, guys, and you guys are all stuck in the box like you just fought the Undertaker, and it's exhausting. It's boring me, and it's boring all of us, and we're tired of it. Stop with the get the ruby. Move on. Advance. Evolve. Please.
Yeah,
So-
and we'll say this is sort of orthogonal to what Dubs is talking about. Like the Braunstein play is it just keeps things from being static. You know, when we set up the first Battle Braunstein, you know, Billy had this palisade in the game for the whole year, where nothing had really ever happened except he had his Naugahyde couch stashed there.
That's where it wound up.
Which was a very poignant thing when you get down to it, that, you know, a lot of people were very upset about. But you know, I never did anything with the palisade. Oh, you know, it might have been a base of operations to attack some hill giants that were doing tax collection. It was almost a place where something would happen, but no. You know, we had this non-elite player in the group, and we couldn't get the get along gang couldn't get consensus to do something fun. So, you know, so we were that. But no, as soon as we did the Battle Braunstein, and everybody is playing their role as these regional powers, you know, Dornell's like, I freaking hate that palisade.
Yeah.
He's playing the elves, right? He's like, I want to destroy that palisade with like all my heart. And it was, you know, and we, you know, there's a lot of things that could have happened. You know, people could have ended up marching all the men around. That's what I thought was going to happen, is all these factions are going to march to the monster city, and that it was going to be a big blow up, you know. And so, so nobody ever left the palisade. It was never not fortified, you know. But, you know, those elves were watching, you know, that palisade very closely. It could have been a hot spot. But yeah, that's fire. That's good gaming. And as a referee, I never thought, oh, you know, I should really like throw something at Billy, make him sweat, you know, burn his palisade to the ground. You know, as a DM, I would never think to do that. As soon as you got a real person playing the elves, it's over. It's on the table.
Yeah.
So something's going to get burned.
That's something we dealt with. We dealt with that even with regular old patron play, not even Braunstein play. If you look at our early patron posts, one of the things that I personally was really all about for, well, let's put patrons in, was the fact that I don't like getting in my feelings and having a struggle session by myself on whether this is fair or not to hit this guy with this. Okay. Right now, even in Dubsaron, I've got some vampires that they've like angered. They've got them all worked up, and I haven't done a session report of it because the sessions are kind of meh. They just kind of go in the dungeon, come back out. But they've scared up these vampires that are mad at them. And in my head, I'm thinking, you know, maybe these vampires would come out of the dungeon and come screw with them. They know where they live. And then I'm like, well, I better roll some dice for that so it's fair. You give it to a patron, it doesn't matter if it's fair.
That's right.
It does not matter. Okay, you give it to the patron, he's like, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till they're asleep. I'm going to go to them individually, you know, all on the same day, but I'm going to split up my forces so everyone gets level drained at the same moment, like I'm freaking Walter White. You know, it's like, that's the thing that patrons think of. So that for me when I heard the patrons would do that, and I don't have to struggle with myself because it's a PvP element. I loved it because I didn't have to stress. I didn't have to fret. Look, I can let go. You guys think I'm so mean. I'm actually a very nice person. I don't want to screw over my players. I usually will roll dice to see if I should screw over my players because I'm trying to be fair. But the fact of the matter is, these fantasy adventure worlds don't need to be fair. But then you take it to the next step. Okay, that's cool for a patron. Doesn't need to be fair. Wouldn't it be more interesting, instead of doing it in your little chat window, hey, you got a level drain, you're dead now. Boring. Wouldn't it be more interesting that happens in session? It just is more interesting in session because the DM can jump in and say, well, you know, what I think of the game world position is this and this and this. You don't have to drive. The DM doesn't have to go crazy trying to do like, I'll do it for a month. I'll do Broken Law for a month until I pull my hair out and collapse in a, you know, schizophrenic, you know, fever. You don't have to do that. So Battle Bronze is the way to go on that. And even patrons with the fairness factor just pulled out. So we have a more dangerous world. Because this DM fair stuff is not a dangerous world. A lot of these monsters
doesn't make your players lean forward and take it serious.
Yeah, a lot of these monsters should be as crazy with as many player character style schemes as the player characters do to them. That's why you need it. If it made Goldenrod want to just be broken inside, that one player scheme came against them, one. Imagine how broken these DMs are, that we have to deal with these idiotic schemes week after week after week after week, and I'm almost at 160 sessions, guys, and it's exhausting. And I need the players to step up so that they can PvP themselves, so I don't have to work so hard. Help me out, please.
Right. So I've got a story about this too. This if you just do this one thing from the Bro SR, it will make your game better. I have a story about this recently. I've got a character who's a monk. His player wanted to try and find what had happened to his sensei, who's disappeared. And the sensei was actually captured by the brigands that I just rolled up when I rolled the castle for that hex. There's a castle in the swamp. It's run by brigands. And I put a dude in charge of those brigands. And I said, what kind of defenses would you have in your castle? And one of the things he said was he wanted to have alarm spells around it so that he could silently know when someone was infiltrating. So these two monks try to go in, NPC and a player. This is all downtime via text. They're trying to infiltrate the castle and see if they can find their master. And they trip the alarms. And so I'm going back and forth with him. And the bad guys wound up capturing them. And I was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I'm going to jail the NPC guy. And I'm going to send the level 1 guy back to let him know, hey, I need this huge ransom. And also I want to talk to the knight of your little town. And he said, here's how I want you to send him back, because they got a big doom bat. He's like, I want the doom bat to fly him back and drop him in a pigsty in his own town. And it's like, that is so much. I would not have considered that because I'm thinking of all this other stuff. They would have let him go when he would have had to go back on his own to deliver the news. But like the character, when I started texting the other guy and he's hearing what's happening and how he gets captured, and then like this crazy nighttime fly being gripped by the shoulders by this bat that drops him in. I mean, it was just, it's the kind of magic that you want in your campaign. And the patrons will be, as you guys have said, will be way meaner to your players than you would. And it does not turn your players off. It makes them take it serious and sit forward and pay attention.
Right. Yeah. So like tying it back all in to everything else, just want to like draw your attention to Boot Hill, 2nd edition, 1979. On the cover of the rule book, it says role-playing game of the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
And on the back, it says, oh, other role-playing games from TSR. But you open it up. Oh man, what does it say? The subtitle on the title page: rules for playing games and campaigns of the Wild West on a man-to-man scale. Now you look at this thing and there's nothing to it. Okay. It's literally rules for rolling up gunfighters, resolving gunfights. That's all you've got. That's all you got. And then when you look at this section called how the game is played, or the game, well, that's a really interesting thing, because there was a section like that in the front of the player's handbook of AD&D that didn't sound like anything anybody has ever been doing with D&D. You remember that one, page 7 of the player's handbook? Well, we've got a very similar section here, and every referee that ran a Battle Braunstein in the past 3 months here will immediately recognize everything that is written on page 3 of this rule book, because paragraph by paragraph, it is essentially advice on how to run a session Braunstein, note for note. Every gameplay dynamic that we have observed, every challenge that we have faced, every procedural thing that you need to watch out for, it's all basically covered here. And
It's
the
all right there.
assumption here is that a role-playing game would be adjudicated as if it were a Braunstein. This is crazy. And
when did that game come out?
1979.
Oh man.
And so this game is fundamentally different from Tunnels and Trolls.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally different from the game that the OSR people are playing. It's fundamentally different from the game that is a brand that Wizards of the Coast is playing. And I'll tell you something about it. Something about it. This is what we've learned from setting up session Braunsteins is, 1, they're automatically fun. 2, you don't have to be a game designer. In fact, you could be terrible at game design and set up a really successful session Braunstein. And 3, I've found that there's a lot of rules sections in AD&D that are really handy in adjudicating session Braunsteins. But for the most part, what we think of as RPG systems, common RPG systems, like skills systems in particular, we don't need them. We don't need them because the diplomacy part of the game is the game, and it's the part that's fun. And if you've got combat rules, and you've got diplomacy and negotiation, and you've got people acting against each other's interests under a fog of war, you've got an awesome game right there. And then finally, it's a self-balancing game. Everybody is playing the get along game with the perfectly balanced world, and they're very concerned, not just keeping the party balanced against the adventure challenge, but also keeping every single character in the party balanced with every other character in the party, right? There's a real fetish for that among Scarecrow role-playing game design people, particularly after the year 2000. It's bizarre. In a Braunstein, none of that matters. None of that matters. We've seen low-level PCs play in the same world that the big boys are in, and there's just different things happening depending on where you are, what you can do. You have to have a little bit of sense to select things that are appropriate for you to go deal with. It's an open world and there's a lot of forces in it. But for the most part, the alliance structure and the betrayal structure creates a balance effect that is not intrusive on the immersion, and in fact, the unknown part enhances the immersion. I mean, I can't believe I'm using these container words with a straight face.
And you don't have to womp it up either, right? Like, it's not something that's up to the DM to find the fun and bring it to the game. It just happens. It's easy. It's natural.
Yeah, and that's why in Boot Hill, I'm going to say the reason there's no guidance on how to set up Braunsteins with Boot Hill is because you can't go wrong. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
David Weasley could do it and create legendary sessions when he didn't know how it worked yet. And you can too. And it's really cute. You can look in the back.
The bar, guys. He's lowered the bar. Okay. You can come straight up from developmental, knock it up. You can make it happen. You can be from the women's division. You can still have a successful Braunstein. It's lowered the bar. You don't have to be online 24/7 with this one-to-one adjudication, everything. Like everyone's playing, Jewel Crush or whatever with your time.
Yeah.
No, my time is dedicated to the session time. I'll adjudicate downtime stuff as I can, but the session time is where the action is. Why don't we Braunstein it? Why don't we do it, guys? We've lowered the bar. Anyone can do it.
So going back to what Jeffro said earlier, that one-to-one time is not axiomatic to real D&D. It's how we got there, but the Braunstein is. And I recently, Rob Kuntz has been more active on Twitter, and I asked him about one-to-one time, and he didn't know what that was. He was like, I'm not up on the lingo. And I was like, well, strict timekeeping records. He's like, yeah, we did strict timekeeping records. But that kind of goes to what Jeffro was saying, was that the one-to-one time thing, it's one of the rules, but it wasn't the main difference. And the main difference, the axiomatic difference, is this Braunstein style play, as opposed to telling a story together with the
Well, let me clarify that. D&D has several axioms. Braunstein is one-to-one time is another. Figure scaling is another one, with player characters being able to interact with mass troops on the same playing field. And rules as written, I'm going to say, you have to have that one or you don't have it. And for D&D specifically, Appendix N is probably one too.
Okay.
I've argued that.
Well, let's run through it real quick though. Let's run through the axioms real quick. And this isn't Axe's axioms where he puts out his little articles. This is the axioms of what he just went through. Let's look and do like a little sliding scale of who accepts what. Rules is written. The bros like that. Everyone else is like, rules is written. I'm not into that. Okay. I will not serve. I will not bow even to rules in my game when I play a game. Rules is written is out. So OSR is out. Okay. The 6E stands, they're gone. Okay. One-to-one time. The bros are into that. Cool. We're following along. What was the other one? What was the next one?
Like figure scaling.
Scale up, you would say.
Yeah.
Figure scaling. The bros last summer were like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool, Jeffro. We got a whole YouTube channel making bank with John Mullis and Mr. Wargaming on that. Okay. Well deserved. The guy's out there doing it. He's got the best BroSR channel out there. And so I wonder why I'm here twice in too many weeks. I certainly wonder that.
Well,
but now
I text you back. I don't know if he does.
He would text me back. I got him to run a cosmic war game for me for a month, my friend.
That's true.
I couldn't get you to do that. You're lazy. I don't even think you should pull that off. With your gap in your tooth. So what are we trying to do right now is push the bros into the next axiomatic, which is Braunstein is axiomatic. The bros aren't quite there yet. Okay. We're getting a lot of guff. We're getting a lot of heat. We're getting a lot of clapback. It's a shame.
Yeah.
You see this. They tuned in tonight. You can watch the chat. They're not as lit tonight. Why is it? Are they out partying? No, these guys aren't out partying. That doesn't happen with D&D players. They're not out partying on Friday night. Why are they not lit tonight? They're not lit tonight because rather than insulting Dundermoose, I'm kind of calling them out. They don't like it. They don't like it. I put out the Elite PC Challenge. The response has been tepid. It's been weak. It has not been good because they're thinking they can sort of, they're kind of skid past. I don't know about this Braunstein stuff. I don't know if it's axiomatic. It is axiomatic.
There was one guy who was like, yeah, I totally did something like that a year ago.
Yeah, great. You did it a year ago. Look, I'm fine with the year ago thing. Jeffro was not fine with it. Since it's my challenge, I'll let it go. But I want to hear some good reporting on it. I want to hear it public. It's not just about getting you guys to do more different now. It's about getting people to reflect on where they've done it and where it's made things good. Because once again, one-to-one time is axiomatic. But one-to-one time, we realized the flatten the play thing that we saw with Mandoff or Drakon or whatever. I could talk with those guys and get them to chill out. I talk with Drakon, so that's why my game didn't need a table flip. But what would be better is if all these guys were thinking Braunstein the whole time. And that's what they weren't doing because we weren't quite there yet in some cases, or they rejected it as axiomatic in other cases. So stop rejecting it, guys. You're killing your games. You're killing
Don't just do it for the XP either. The XP is the ruby. Do it because this is the real stuff. This is the main line. This is the magic.
I don't want to hear every time, where can I get the ruby? Where can I make the most cash? Okay. I want to hear, where can I make the most cash that my guy would want to do? That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I don't.
How do I
it-
grab a dagger and write my
the
name
lawful
on
good
this
guy.
map?
We understand that the paladin is not going to go heist a bank, okay, to get the XP. So why is it so hard to do the opposite with like your chaotic neutral guy is not going to go save the princess, or your lawful evil guy, your assassin's not going to save the princess. Or if he sometimes gets roped in to save the princess of a good act,
Yeah.
he's trying to like screw it up. Or he's trying to find a way, not just to screw up for the session, because that's kind of boring. Straight up PvP of just player character versus player character in session is kind of lame. But he's trying to like manipulate it. Like he's trying to like at the end, he's going to grab the princess and take her to the Dark Lord right at the end of the session. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
interesting. Just
Yeah.
no, I'm going to stab the paladin in the middle of the fight. Boring, lame. That's in like modules, okay? And modules suck. But grab the princess right at the end and rip her and take her to the Dark Tower of Evil. That's interesting. That's Braunstein thinking.
So John Miller asks, I'm currently DMing a Greyhawk campaign using AD&D. I have 2 player groups, one online with only 2 players, the other face-to-face with 5 to 7. How do I turn this into a Braunstein?
Oh, well, you need to, if you've got, okay, 2 player groups. Yeah. Well, we already seen it with Dunder. Is there anything that any of those groups can find out about the other group? First, you need some rumors coming in. They need to be aware. Is there any way they can interact at all? Conventional play would tend to say no. This is one of those things like everybody looks at what we're doing and they're like, oh yeah, that's West Marches. People have been doing that for years. Did the tables interact in the West Marches game? I think if they did, we would hear some really exciting stories about some awesome gameplay that happened. But if you've got a conventional mindset of get along gameplay parties with really fair things happening, I've heard accounts of people saying, "Oh yeah, I started down this path a little bit to experiment, but more experienced people pulled me aside and was like, "Oh, PvP is bad. Don't go there at all."
Yeah.
So look, if you got 2 tables in the same campaign, man, you are set. You are light years ahead of everybody else. That's great. I hope you got 1-to-1 time being used to coordinate that, because if you do, that's going to set you up. But yes, just give every player a faction, randomly assign them. You can. You can just make a Braunstein session. That's what we've been demonstrating the past while. Is like everybody in the session, here's the faction. The RuneQuest players did this back in the 70s, where they're like, okay, we've got some political intrigue in the town, and we don't know. There's a lot of things that have developed, and we don't know how it's going to play out. So there was a session where the players set aside their usual player characters, and they took on roles of major NPCs within the town. And then for a session, they ran a session Braunstein, worked out all the large scale events, and they were like, okay, great. We know what's going on now. Braunsteins are really great for flushing out what the most interesting thing about a situation is. Yeah. Referees suck at looking at it. They don't have the imagination to do it. When you've got 6 or 8 people all playing their roles at once, you get instant results, and it's way better than what a referee would come up with. But yeah, if you're daunted by the idea of setting up a session, Braunstein, 1, I would say don't be. But 2, that was another thing that we did last year. Like I spent a lot of effort trying to find ways to explore Braunstein dynamics with less effort on the part of the play group and the referee, with less total attention. So that story where we had one group come up with a plan to meddle with something that involves the other table. Like now the key there to make that work with like no sweat, if you've got sometimes it's easy to do the interactions, like Dunder was talking about texting back and forth when the monk got captured and the ransom deal went down. So sometimes it's pretty easy. Other times, if you're in the heat of a session, you've got a really complex plan that one group and the other has foisted on the other, and you don't want to stop. Well, people today, they don't want to stop the game to make sure they're playing the rules right. I would, that's dumb.
Yeah,
No, get the rules right. But if
that's
you're
right.
already like that, if you already have that attitude, you're going to stop the game to make sure you get the NPC right. That's acting out in that session. No, you're not going to do that either. So this was something Dunder was able to do. He was able to separate himself from the game and the PC and be like, oh, well, when that other group is playing and my plan is enforced, there's a lot of stuff that I can't anticipate that the referee is going to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And, it may not come out quite the way I want it to, but, I'm going to have to trust my referee to handle this, and it, and that's fine. You can do that. You can dial it back a little bit.
But you got to trust the referee's also going to be fair to the other team too. Like when I held foam with that open hand, I was realizing that, hey, if things go down and the other team is smart, this guy may die. And I'm okay with that. I have to be okay with that. The other thing that Jeffro's not telling you about this whole thing is that it did take him leaning on us for me to actually come up with that. I was, still in my entry mode. I didn't, know if I had as much of a voice as I should have because, I was playing with people that I considered, I'd been reading their session reports and I was like, these guys cutting edge, and here I am trying to join. But nobody was, if you remember, Jeffro, when you were like, hey, how are you guys going to get these eggs? Nobody was really taking the bait and saying, here's what we're going to do. And you're like, you guys are disappointing me. What's going on? Come on. And finally, I'm just sitting there and I was like, all right, here's my plan. I got a level 1 illusionist thief, but for whatever reason, these guys trust me. So let's do this. And I was like, no plan survives contact with the enemy, but I'm just going to write out, here's what I would try to do.
Yeah.
And I wrote it all out for Jeffro. So I'm like, however this goes down, I at least know that he knows what foam would do because he's played with me for a few sessions. I at least know that he knows what my plan is. If he might need to improvise, he knows how to do what foam would do to improvise. It may not go my way. I didn't think it would. 6 people in live with the DM versus my pre-written plan.
No, this is all completely documented over at my blog.
That's right.
Last year, I got detailed session reports on it. The plan didn't actually work.
That's right.
However, the person who was reacting to it made so many unforced errors. It all I had to do was go back and talk to foam afterwards and be like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. Also, he gave you the scroll. He gave you an illusionist scroll.
He didn't take it back when he kicked me out of the tower.
And so that scroll that he gave and the circumstances that developed because of this failed plan allowed Foam the Gnome to come back and resolve everything in his own favor after the session. So not everything has to happen at once. Things can develop a little bit over time. It's great.
All right, follow up from John Miller. To be frank, the Braunstein is outside my OSR sandbox comfort zone, even though it seems objectively more fun. It's a radical shift to give every player a kingdom or to play whatever. BDubs, how would you answer this? I can
I would answer this. Yeah, you leave it up because you read it in case somebody's driving. Listen to this later because I don't think we have very many people right now. Maybe on Monday going into work, we'll actually get tens of people. It is outside your comfort zone, but that is a mind killer. Okay, it's just fear. It's just getting you. You got to get past that. What did Jeffro say?
Yeah.
The best ones are people that barely know what they're doing. Look, dude, you're a guy. Okay, if the women's division can do it, you can do it. It's easy. Climb the card like Scooter for Mike and Night Danger. Do it. They got highlighted in the most important What is a Dundermoose episode of all time with the rating system. So you can do it. First off, get over the fear. Secondly, it doesn't have to be a kingdom. That's the other thing. People are overthinking this of it has to be kingdom versus kingdom. It has to be army versus army. Okay? It doesn't have to be army. It can just be a people. Now, I'm going to go back to something, and I'm going to be really quick about this. This is some 3rd edition stuff I did back in the day in the early 2000s. Okay? I had a DM that said he had some stuff happen in an old campaign. He wanted to bring a new campaign when those players leveled up to name level. But he wanted to put them in on the Greyhawk map. There's a country called Schwarzenbrunn. So it's funny that these kind of concepts tend to be Austrian sounding or whatever. Schwarzenbrunn on the Greyhawk map. You guys will see that. It's over near Lake Quag. And he let basically, in the PCs were just the same PCs from an earlier campaign, but he went in and leveled them up all to 9 or whatever. And they had like armies, or in my case, I had like a thieves guild, all this type of stuff. And the sessions, and he was almost apologetic about it, almost like David Wesley, like, oh, I couldn't get the party together to do a Dell. I couldn't get the party together to go fight the monster or the dragon. But what we were doing, and what some players didn't like, but I certainly like, you can tell from my personality, was all the scheming. Because we were trying to basically, like, we had like one side was wanting to claim the city for their political benefit, because it was like during after the city was taken, but we were trying to like claim it like after the fact. This was during like the Iraq War and stuff, and we were trying to riff on that. And another side, and I was on one side trying to claim the city with politics and get all the peasants behind us, and I was using like thieves guild type tactics. And we did probably about 15 sessions, where almost every session was just the players screwing each other over and trying to trick each other with these high-level PCs. We didn't all have armies, okay? I think 2 players had really, really big armies, and all the rest of them had, like, I had a thieves guild, one guy had a cleric temple, and another guy had, like, just a handful of adventurers. He was like a ranger type. And that's why I can see the future. It was done, and it was accidental. It's funny how people stumble into these game modes, and this was back in like probably 2004, 2005, whatever, in 3rd edition, which is a terrible system for anything of real D&D. But the Braunstein is so anti-fragile, it doesn't really matter, because the game is this sort of loose diplomacy scheming stuff. So what I have to tell to John Miller, don't overthink it. Okay, come to your players and emphasize where the players might have these contentions. Okay, if they're all lawful good, clerics and paladins, fine. There's no contentions. They're all ready to rock and roll. I would even argue, though, even in that case, like they would be from different temples, and they might want to claim. They might want to claim the location for one temple versus the other temple. Blah blah blah. Doesn't mean they're going to be fighting in the streets. The fighting in the streets thing is what so many people get wrong about PvP. They think it's just like an arena battle. They just want to like, let's throw down right now. I got more strength than you. I win. That can happen, sure. But what's more interesting is the sort of political machinations and the trickeration and all the stuff behind that. So I wouldn't overthink it. I would see where the contentions are. I think it was which of Scooter for Mike or Night Danger had the thing with the cleric versus the paladin. I don't know.
That's
the one
Night
that the necromancer. Was that necromancer? Yeah, that was not. Those were not particularly high level guys, and in my opinion, that was the best of the Battle Braunsteins, not counting my own. So that wasn't that high level, guys. It was yes, the necromancer was high level, but he didn't have all the resources versus the paladin or the cleric or whatever, who had more of an army, but he was lower level. You don't have to be name level to do this stuff. You don't have to give armies, and you don't need to overthink it. Just make it happen. I want to kind of digress a little bit once again, just to thank Jeffro. We have in our midst a tabletop RPG anthropologist.
That's right.
Do you guys realize what's happening here? He just when he's like talking about Boot Hill. If any of you idiots read Boot Hill, I haven't. I don't care. Tunnels and Trolls, whatever. I've heard about that. It's got the traps thing that Goodman Games put out that I didn't support that one because I was done paying the OSR for a bunch of junky books I'm never going to use. But we've got a tabletop RPG anthropologist in our midst. He's ready to go back and read these things where none of us are. This is something he's passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm passionate about the
rifts.
And I don't care about any of this junk. But what he just showed you is that the implications of what's written in these books of the Boot Hills, like it just assumes a Braunstein. Just assumes it. We're all running over, falling over ourselves. How do I do it? How do I do it? It doesn't matter. Just do it. Don't worry so much. That's the thing I want to say at this point. Don't worry so much. Make it happen. Your campaign will be better for it. Your players will love it, and they will deliver if you trust them.
Yeah, and Dunder, put this thing from Tag 1080 up on the screen. Yeah, okay.
It still feels almost like the Braunsteins are a crutch, training wheels, not sure the word, to force players to play. Do you think you will change them over time?
I'm sorry that mean Jeffro will have to make an appearance after this really nice show that we've had tonight.
It's been so nicey nice.
This is the stupidest thing that anybody's ever said.
Oh no.
I'm really like, what are you doing, man? Like we just got done explaining that Braunsteins are axiomatic
Yeah.
to D&D, that they're fundamental, that you can't mess it up, that they're really fun, that it's superior to conventional play in every other way. And now, like, you're calling that a crutch. We're talking about a transformation about the way you think about RPGs. And you're gonna come at me with crutch and training wheels. Like, give me a break, man.
Like, the
Who is this?
Braunstein doesn't
Who
make
is
you
this guy?
ready to play conventional. It is far beyond it.
So
It's far beyond
look,
it. Just like making a login name doesn't make you ready to make good comments. Like this guy. What is he even talking about? Exhausting. Goodness.
So look, Braunstein play, it just works because people start playing their roles. They start having objectives beyond get the ruby. And yeah, thank you, brother. Modules really are the crutch. But yeah, Braunstein is not a crutch for playing the game or a tool for getting a certain type of behaviors. It is the game.
It is the game.
That's what we're saying. And this idea of, oh, I don't understand D&D. I don't understand. I'm going to make a game out of the parts I understand. That is not D&D. Okay. That's a new type of game that is distinct from what anybody was doing when these games were really, really exciting and really, really successful and really, really producing awesome continuing campaigns, you know.
I gotta be honest. If you're the type of guy, you really shouldn't be dabbling in game design if you can't even make a successful YouTube comment on a video with 3 viewers. Okay.
All right.
Get it
Okay.
together.
Hang on.
You can't
Tag's
even
got a
handle that.
clarification. He says, right. It gets people playing, gets them scheming and moving and shaking. Do you think if you do enough of them, the players will just do that all the time instead of needing designated sessions? Is what he means.
Oh, well, we're working on that.
I was just talking about that. I talked about in a 3rd edition game, I had a DM who accidentally was doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen the future. You follow my Twitter timeline. I predict the future on COVID and
That's right.
psyops and false flags and everything else. I don't even talk about that here because we don't have time for all the greatness that I've shown to you guys as the wise man, as the tribal council.
There.
Jeffro. But what does he got?
Scooter for Mike says, had 2 sessions since my battle Braunstein, and they have been mini Braunsteins.
This is why this guy's outpacing all of you. This is why he's coming in. This is why he's coming in and doing better than all of you. No. You Dunder, 1 second. Scooter for Mike's just destroying the competition, okay? Any of you that watch wrestling, you've seen Braun Breaker. He came in and he smashed a dude against the wall and kicked him out of the company. That's going to be you if you don't step up. Do you want to be the guy that was thrown into the car window by Scooter for Mike? I don't think so. If you're not challenging your PCs to the Elite PC Challenge, you are out. You're out of the big leagues and you're going down to the lower stuff, okay? Stop.
All right.
Get it together. Get your games on a Braunstein level right now because I'm bored.
He's bored. Okay, I want to say something to John right before he jumps off. Thank you for your question, man. My 2 bits of advice. The first thing is it's okay to start with Greyhawk, but do not keep it Greyhawk. I feel like that was one of the things that burned out the curator, was that he was committed to the setting and he tried to keep it true to the setting, and the Braunstein will absolutely flip the table and change the thing. So if you stay in Greyhawk, think of it as a slice in time, a starting point, and your campaign will move it on from there. Save yourself some stress that way. The second thing I wanted to say is kind of a digression, but for people in your position or others that are like, do I know how to do this? My question is, have you ever done How to Host a Murder? Have you ever played any of those games? Because for me, it is very similar. I remember being in one that we did for church, and it was a young marrieds class, and so everybody and their wife was there, and it got
we just lost our three viewers.
Yeah,
we just lost them.
No, hear me out, Jeffro. If you could talk about dancing, at least let me say this: we were playing How to Host a Murder. And all you get is you get a person and you get a rumor table for the things that your person knows and doesn't want the other people to find out, right? pretty basic. My buddy John and his wife Sarah were playing the cops, the detectives, and they were asking me about stuff, and I didn't make it easy, but I gave up the goods eventually. But they thought I knew more than what I was telling them, and so they took me into another room and murdered me, because one of the rules of the game was if somebody gets killed in the game, they come back as an investigator, and they're like, we'll see his notes if we kill him. So the investigators murdered me, and it got all Braunstein-y. They went PvP on that, and so it's like that game was a fad. I don't know if people still do How to Host a Murder or not, or if it was just for a time. But I feel like they're don't overthink it. It's powerful and it's easy and it's fun, is what I was trying to say. Any thoughts on that? The connection between How to Host a Murder and Braunstein, or am I just way off on a limb on that?
I think you're fine. I think you're fine.
All right. And I want to thank John Miller for your question. It was an honest question. You're a good guy. You're on the right track. And yeah, rock on, man. Dornell says, I think you guys misread Tag's comment, but I think it's okay because this is the internet and we all love a good scuzzing. Bradford asks, a question for Jeffro and BDubs. Given what you know now, how do you launch a new campaign?
Town and dungeon is still the way to go. We've got a new view of dungeons now, where it's something to kind of throw out there so that players can learn the rules, get the hang of their characters. I feel like if you're running, if you have one-to-one time and players interacting with the world, I think the overworld is going to become more important session to session over time until it draws people away from that. And you've got here really cool comment from Scott, from Mike, saying, he's dealing with the fallout from the Braunstein. No one wants to go back to the dungeon. I used to think that was bad. Because in 2020 I was like, because my idea going in was like, okay, we're going to, the mega dungeon is the game, and I want to have the Jeffro mega dungeon, and I want to put it into a product, and I want to make millions of dollars selling my mega dungeon product like everybody else, But it never happened because the overworld became so intriguing and just took all the air out of the room. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to give up on dungeons. They're easy. They're fun to make. It's easy to get them played. People know how it works, but I don't think you have to rush it at all. I do think it's useful to have system mastery when you begin playing with Braunstein type play dynamics. I guess very useful. In fact, Gary Gygax talks about that in Boot Hill 2nd Edition. Like, don't play the campaign until you've mastered the core rules. Don't play the Braunstein.
Gaming anthropologist. Look at this. He's the anthropologist. I got some thoughts on the dungeon stuff and how to start a campaign. Okay. Here's the deal. If you are somebody who's been paying attention to the BroSR and been like a player in one of these campaigns for a long time, you can go ahead and jump in and do like a Battle Braunstein start to a campaign. You can do it. Go for it. More power to you. Dundermoose, if he did it, I'd be like, that's cool, man. Enjoy. But yeah, if you're just in the women's division starting out, I wouldn't recommend it. So I would start initially with the town and the dungeon setup. It's the simplest way to go. Don't outline too much into the wilderness. And as far as the dungeons, like Jeffro was saying, it's a good place to have in case the players can't agree on anything interesting that night or whatever, or they want to get the Ruby. I have done some stuff in Dubzaron where unique magic items basically can only be found in dungeons, just to kind of have like a reason to go in dungeons in a normal session. That's kind of like so you can get like a +1 sword or whatever, wherever you can layer smash for that. But if you want like the unique item, you have to go in the dungeon. Or something that I would entertain, obviously, because people roll up their magic items when they make a faction leader. You can also gain a unique magic item from like a Braunstein type thing. The leader of the orc faction might have some crazy unique item from the DMG that isn't just a +1 sword or whatever. So those are some things I would keep in mind. You want to have some small incentive to go in a dungeon just because something fun will go on there, and you can still have those small battles, those small scale battles that a lot of players enjoy, including a lot of DMs like adjudicating those sometimes. I think if we're shifting back and forth from small scale battle to large scale all the time, I don't think any of it's going to get particularly boring. But the overland map does start to kind of take over the mindset of these games, and I saw it in Trollopolis as a player, and I've certainly seen it in Dubs as a DM and a player. So I think where you start to really be cooking with gas is even when you're level 1 and messing around on the overland or the dungeon, and you're thinking in this Braunstein terms, because you're only level 1, but you can still explore and be like, oh yeah, that's the land of this thing that happened 6 months ago that I remember from this campaign, like real play stuff. And then you start trying to say like, well, that's cool that I know that, that's lore. But the lore is not what makes these things cook with gas. It's not the lore. It's how you interact with the lore. It's how you shake it up. It's how you shake up the lore. So that's why you always need to be having this Braunstein thinking. And I think if you have battle Braunsteins, occasionally players will start thinking that way more. Or they can just follow the Elite PC challenge and not lose XP. That also will help too.
I do want to point out, Fluid backs me up on the how to host a murder. He says, I agree on how to host a murder. I did one. Def has Braunstein aspect. It's the secret information, fog of war. And I want to agree with what BDubs is saying. My campaign started too big. I wish that I had just done a city in a dungeon, or a town in a dungeon. And I thought I had, but I made a few hexes around. I rolled up some castles and stuff. And the problem was, I did not start the way that I should have, as far as I should have started them on the way to the dungeon so that the first session was a delve, because they've immediately gotten interested in the politics of the town and the things around them. And like the overworld is already way more interesting to them than, and they haven't even found the dungeon yet.
Yeah, that just proves you have just better players overall. If they're not just like go in the dungeon, let's go get the ruby, then even in
these
session
are guys
1,
from church and work that I invited. These are like people that I wanted to do face to face.
Once again, trained wrong.
Yeah, they haven't been trained on conventional play or even BroSR get the ruby play. It's you have to be trained out of some of these bad habits, and that's what my challenge is about. Get out of these bad habits and think it through. Think more like somebody coming up that's hungry, that wants to prove something. Stop thinking like somebody who just wants to protect what you have.
Have you guys found, like, have you ever wondered, this is going to sound bad, have you ever wondered if maybe if you hadn't come across this better way to play, if you might still be satisfied? Like, have we just made ourselves snobs by playing something that's so much more fun that we can't appreciate the conventional way? No, and clearly there's a lot of people willing to shout us down who still, like, their whole lives have been playing conventional and feel threatened that we say this is not as good.
No one enjoys conventional play. Okay. 0 people enjoy conventional play.
Yep.
Many people can lie to themselves or pretend they enjoy conventional play. They pretend. They sit there, or they enjoy the social gathering. And we talked about this last time I was on by myself on What is a Dundermoose. You might enjoy hanging out with your friends, getting pizza, talking about your lives while you roll some dice in between. No one enjoys conventional play as a game in and of itself. No one. 0 people. So anyone who tells you they do is a liar. And if they can lie to themselves, you really can't trust what they say to you, because they can even lie to themselves and believe it. And that is a dangerous person right there.
Right on.
Yeah. And conventional play doesn't work because the essential elements that made these games work were lost. And that includes not just one-to-one time, but also Braunstein play is intrinsically fun.
You know, what occurred to me recently is you go back and read some of these OSR blogs or like historical ones. I remember these from back in the day when I used to just devour these OSR stuff. They would talk like, oh, these guys back in Lake Geneva, they had so much fun. Okay. And they start talking about like these guys hanging out in Gary's basement, you know, playing on like a door he ripped off the wall. And okay. Then you just see all these old guys, these old family men. Then they'd always talk like, when they were waiting for Gary to show up or whatever, they played this game called Diplomacy. And then some people in the chats or G Plus before Google destroyed it for being a cesspool of weirdos and sodomites, they would like come in and they'd say, "Oh yeah, here's what Diplomacy is. I found it at Half Price Books. Here's what it is." Okay, but then it wasn't until 2023 where anyone was like, Jeffro, the tribal chief, came on and was like, "Hey, maybe these guys played Diplomacy because they understood that that's good gaming."
Yeah.
Maybe they had this mentality of this like scheming and espionage and all this stuff that's in Diplomacy. And you watch like the Dune series, Lynch's superior version, or the new recent one with the weird, angry mulatto girl, or whatever. Or you'll check out like a Game of Thrones if you're a pervert. So all these things are possible, and you should be thinking, how can my D&D be like these interesting stories, or the War of the Roses, or the Five Armies, or something like that? But all these years, the OSR were like, "Oh, isn't it funny they play Diplomacy all the time?" These guys never take the next step of thinking. Never. And it's good that we have the tribal chief who's ready to go through the door and he's ready to try it. He's ready to do it. He's ready to challenge us to do it. Even if he might not DM or play as much as we do, we're out here studying his techniques. But that's like Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns only showed up like once a quarter to do a match. That's all Jeffro has to do. He doesn't have to show up every month. He doesn't have to show up every week. Why? For what? What's he got to prove? He's taken all comers down. It's exhausting. Why would you have to beat down the next OSR moron that doesn't understand definitions of words? You can just show up once a quarter and smash him in the face with a Superman punch. Honestly.
Right on, man. It's okay. I know that was a weird question, and I appreciate you guys for humoring it.
Well, you're a weird person, so that's why we're here.
All I can say is, so yeah,
weird mustache.
I'll shave it. All I can say is I have never played since I started playing the Bro SR. It is very difficult for me to be satisfied when somebody out of the goodness of their heart invites me to a conventional game, and I try to stay quiet and not be rude. But it just, once you as a player, not even as a DM, but as a player, once you have had a taste of that promise of I really can go anywhere and do anything in this game, it really rankles when that's removed from you again.
Yeah. And it's an anti-game. It's a non-game, Yeah, at best it's a non-game. At worst, it's an anti-game. People knew that it was like this in 1981, but there was nobody there at the time who would rise up and say, "We got to draw a line. We got to draw a line. That you're playing with this game, but you're not playing the game, and you're not playing the game as it was intended." And this goes back to there's a commenter on my blog. Let me see, what's his name? I want to make sure I get the name right. Oh, I can't remember. But he quoted. He's a GURPS player. He quoted Scholar at Arms. This is why everything went wrong. This is why RPGs are fake, broken, and dumb. There's 2 points where things happened. One was the initial phase when people got OD&D and there was no one available to personally initiate them into how it actually works. And instead, there's all these people that are initiating people into playing wrong, right? Or they made up an entire new game that sort of looked like D&D, but it was just the parts they understood. But no, there's a lot to it that make it work that we can clearly now look back and say, oh, you didn't have it. After AD&D came out, AD&D clarified the actual design goals of OD&D that were misunderstood. Yeah. There's a view that like, oh, OD&D means you can make anything. You can change all the rules. You can do everything different. It's a game about imagination. And it's like, well, you took, there's a generation of people that took that from the rules. But if you read the text of AD&D, it's like, oh, well, we said this and the rules said that, and then people did this and it was horrible, right?
Well, but yeah, the thing is Arneson, like, he had players that would only see their own character sheet like twice their entire game because he did so much of it internally.
Yeah.
So just because it was silent doesn't mean that you could do whatever you want. It just, like you say, it hadn't yet been codified in a way that other people could read.
And then further compounding that, there's the fact that no one was allowed to see the DMG.
Yeah.
Right. That attitude. So we've got all these people who are like, I played with it. They're illiterate people, basically. They haven't read the AD&D rules, and they're saying all the time, like, yeah, Gary didn't play by the rules. It's like, bro, you don't even know what the rules are to even tell me if he played by them or not.
Yeah.
Right.
We all saw Secret of Blackmore, right? Did we see Secrets of Blackmore? Everybody here, right? And I'm sure most people
need to see it if you haven't.
You need to see it, but you just picture some of the people that were interviewed. Just picture them. Put them in your mind. I know you can't probably remember exact faces, but you have a general gist of what they look like. If you were going down the soup aisle at Walmart and this guy, one of those guys, was like looking at the soup, just staring it down, you would pass by that aisle and not approach that person. You wouldn't do it. You'd assume he has BO. You'd assume he's kind of a weirdo. You'd assume that there's something wrong with this guy, and you don't want to go get close to him. So these are the people that come along and say, oh, Gary didn't do this and Arneson didn't do. Dude, I would not even let you get close to me at Walmart, much less listen to your opinions on any of this stuff. Seriously. When you say gross nerd, these guys should have their pictures in the dictionary. Look, I love Secrets of Blackmore, and these people brought some information. It is true. But they are really hideous, weird-looking weirdos. They really are.
Right. Yeah, so there's a second phase. There's a second phase that AD&D came out. It clarified the intent of OD&D. That should settle the argument, right? Like, oh, we've been playing wrong. We didn't have that conversation of like, oh, we've been playing wrong for 40 years. You needed someone to be a total monster to have that conversation happen at all. But no, I've got other piece documented, from Space Gamer magazine, 1981. This guy Ronald Purr and Aaron Austin editing him down, and they outline how they were playing AD&D. And the scenario they open with is a paladin destroying a merchant caravan so he can get the ruby, right?
Yeah.
But so we agreed that much, but it's like, bro, I think there's some rules that you're missing here. You don't know what alignment is. You don't know what a paladin is, and
that paladin should have lost all their powers.
so they're playing the game wrong, and then they're going to give the answer of like, oh, what's really important is the role playing. And role playing, I'm sorry, it's a container word. It's like immersion. When these people who haven't mastered the game start throwing it around as like this, I get accused of saying that one-to-one time is a panacea. These guys were like, no, role playing is the panacea, right? These are the kind of people who are like, but no, do you guys play a role-playing game or a role-playing game? That old joke, those guys. So no, they looked at AD&D and they're like, you know what would make the world come alive? Now keep in mind, we've given you all these things that you could do to make the world come alive. Braunstein play makes the world come alive.
Yeah.
One-to-one time makes the world come alive. If you actually look at just the RPGs, you don't even need to see Gary Gygax's receipts from the grocery store, right? To divine this. And we're talking about in the games. That's what my book, How to Win, outlines, is the evidence inside the games that reveals that those games were different from what we're playing when we call role-playing games today. Okay.
Yeah.
It should be case closed if you could just read it. So we've given you all these ideas from the old rule books that make the game fun because it was a game and it worked. These guys, Ronald Purr and Aaron Austin, are like, hey,
the art is really good too in this book.
No,
They-
I'm just
there
throwing
it
that up
is.
there.
Thunder.
I
No,
think,
they're like,
these
you
guys
know what
are
will make
really
the game
obsessed with
fun?
role playing. They're obsessed with role playing because they want to role play as people that you would not be disgusted to pass by in the soup aisle at Walmart.
Oh,
I got him again. Got him again.
yeah.
Look at him. Look at him. He's gonna
It's
cry
easy
over
for you
his
guys to come
disgusting
on this
mustache.
show and say whatever you want to. Like, I'm thinking about guests I'm trying to have on and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sorry about
Oh,
that.
you want to have some of these weird soup aisle weirdos? You're gonna have them come on. Have me
Well,
come on
now.
as the co-host.
They're gonna,
Yeah.
they're
Hey,
gonna get
if
blocked.
any of you are considering coming on, this is Dundermoose show. He agrees with every word I'm saying.
Yeah.
He thinks that you're all he thinks you're all gross weirdos.
Listen,
And if he
fatties,
saw
come
you
on my
at
show
Walmart in a
anyway.
soup aisle in your little diabetes broken leg scooter, he would just pass you by.
I thought I was mean tonight. Dubs, you're really
Oh
mean.
man.
No, but I was going to say, wrapping it up, their advice, Ronald Pearl and Aaron Austin, they're saying, the blacks, the shopping trips. Yeah, when you go back to town with your loot, the shopping trips, the NPCs you interact during, in the shopping trips, like the blacksmith and stuff, they should like become real characters. And that's the overworld that they had in their game was the shopping trip. Okay. So you're talking about a very limited game. They're arguing leading up to a new statement of what today is called Rule Zero is their punchline. Just change everything. Just change everything. And make it yours. Make it your own. And they had AD&D in their hands. They've been playing with it for like a year or two. They sucked at it. And then it's sort of like, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. It's like role playing is the last refuge of the person who doesn't actually know how to play games, right?
Yeah, of the shrunken leg diabetes victim. That's correct.
So yeah, and that ideology that they came up with to just to depart from bad play, it infuses basically everything that came after. That was a point where before 1979 people played D&D wrong because they didn't know any better, and OD&D was a nightmare to try to pull a game out of it. It was hard. It was tough. But with AD&D, I feel like it is elaborated on. The hardest thing about getting the game out of AD&D is persuading people that think they play RPGs already to go get it out of it. That's the hardest thing about it.
Yeah. So lately on Twitter, there's been a lot of talk about the frustration of not getting to pick your own stats. And I know in Trilopulus, we do method 3, where you get a lot of rolls, but you're going down the line and you get what you get and you don't get upset, right? Like, this is clearly going to be a thief. That's who I'm playing.
All right, those of you that stuck around for me to dunk on Dundermoose, here you go.
Okay.
Why are we re-adjudicating the stupidest OSR discussion in the world? No one cares how you adjudicate stats. That's exhausting. Method, the Conan method of 3d6 down the line. No one cares anymore, dude. We've been talking about that for like freaking 3 decades. That is not a good subject matter. You should be ashamed of bringing that up as much as you're ashamed of your mustache. I expect it shaved by the next broadcast. So if you stuck around for a dunk on Dundermoose, there you go. I dunked on him rather than dunking on all of you who need to step it up on your PC play. All of you need to. But Dundermoose, terrible question. No one wants to talk about stats.
Yeah. All right.
Exhausting, ridiculous. Method 3? Method 3 is the option AD&D. Okay.
Yeah, you should do
online
a
for
show with
Axe.
Tag 1080. You guys are a match.
All right. I withdraw the question and I resign in shame.
Withdraw your mustache.
I've lost mustache privileges. I was doing so well. I feel like this was such a good episode.
All of us will be happy. God, it was going great because you weren't talking that much. It was great.
Is there anything we need to say? Is there anything else?
I want to talk to you about the Lou Pulsifer blog post. I thought that was interesting. And it wasn't current day, right? It was from an article he'd written.
Yeah, 1981. He coined the term anti-game to describe the common narrative DMing technique where you rig the encounter to be just hard enough to fit the dramatic thing you have in mind for it. So the big boss can't lose in the first round to a good plan. He has to beat the players down until they're like on the verge of expiring, and then someone has to just with their last hit point get the right. It's an anti-game. He nailed it. I thought I had coined that term myself. No, Lou got there first, and he was absolutely right. I'm sorry that such an insightful person can't endorse my efforts in how to win at D&D as being objectively correct, because he certainly, at least in 1981, he had enough
That's right.
perspicacity to at least get as far as he did. So I hope he comes around. I hope he avoids the wrong kind of person at the soup aisle. I hope he takes my book, spends some times with it, meditates on it, and then confesses that I'm objectively correct about RPGs, that we have been playing wrong for 40 years, and that Braunsteins and one-to-one time are the answer to all your tabletop problems.
Why is anti-game so lucrative?
Years. All right, go.
I'm sorry, say that again, BDubs.
Well, speaking of the 40 years, I would like to point out on this channel, the people who have been who say that they've been playing this style for 40 years. You know what? Congratulations. You guys are amazing. You've been doing it for 40 years. Thank you. You've been playing Braunstein games, Braunstein, one-to-one. It's amazing. You come at us on Twitter and say, I've been doing that for 40 years. It's totally fine. Hey, great. You guys are the real champions. But before you start speaking about how much success you've had with your 40 years of one-to-one time and Braunstein style play, I would like you all to apologize for not telling us about it. I'd like you all to repent for not bringing it to the public. Okay? So if you're hearing this and you've been doing it for 40 years, you probably aren't listening to this, especially 2 hours in, but come to us and apologize. And any of you that see them claiming that they've been doing this for 40 years, it's fine. You believe them. Trust them. They're not liars. It's fine. It's totally people who aren't weirdo sodomites wouldn't lie about this.
If they had been, they would have come to your defense.
True.
They should at least have, when Jeffro came out, they should have said, yes, this is what we've been doing and this works. Listen to this man.
Maybe they didn't see it. I don't know. It's the only D&D discussion of any note that's been happening for 4.5 years now, but maybe they didn't see it. I don't know. It's possible. But they need to apologize. And then as far as the anti-game, I think that's a good term, because it really is an anti-game. Because not only is it boring, it's actually excruciating. Conventional play is not just, man, this is boring. It's like, I wish I was anywhere else right now than sitting in this place.
Yes.
And you're paying through the nose for that cargo cult mentality. You're buying module after module, hoping that this repackaging of BX will be the one. This will recapture it for me, and this is going to give the thing that I've been waiting for. And they just never pay off, and they just take your money.
Yeah, that's true. That's accurate. For once, you were 100% correct. So
All right, I appreciate that. I got one right before the end. We are coming up on 2 hours, so I'll give each of you, last chance. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Any points that you wanted to make sure that you made tonight that we didn't get to? And then
I'll go first, so Jeffro can go. Well, I'll go for your second question. I'll take it first because so Jeffro can be the last one to talk here. So
okay. The second question is just if people want more Jeffro, if they want more BDubs, how can they support you? How can they follow up on what you're up to?
Yeah, reach out to me on @BDubs1776 on Twitter. Go to BDubsandDragons at blogs.blogspot.com and request how you can maybe send me some money. So go ahead and do that. Figure out how you can pay me.
Just
for the fact that I've given you that I need to avoid the Blackmore Secrets of Blackmore documentary people in the soup aisle so I can go get my chunky Campbell's soup with their weird skin conditions and their lack of nutrition. There's whatever's going on with them there and their melting faces. But I do need some cash for that soup because Campbell's Chunky is not cheap. So send me some cash. Last thing I'd like to say, though, is you guys stop laughing.
I'm sorry.
You're throwing me off my game. You're messing me up. You guys need to acknowledge the tribal chief. Jeffro's out here doing big things, okay? He's taking hits everywhere, every step of the way. Put your fingers up in the chat. I will remember who you are if you don't do it, and I will troll you mercilessly on Twitter. I will do it, and you will be sad because I'm good at it. So just acknowledge that he's got some ideas. Look, you may not be ready for the next idea, but you in 2 years will be ready for the next idea. So rather than wait 2 years and look like the guy late in the season, just kind of like, oh yeah, Dubs did it. He said it was good. I'm finally there. Don't be that guy. Jump on it now. We're right. Look, I'm the smartest guy in the BroSR, and I am the wise man. I'm the tribal council, and I think that this Braunstein stuff is awesome. It's fun. It's cool. And it eliminates some of the excruciating, painful stuff that isn't just in conventional play, but is going on in BroSR games right now that really need to step up. The Clubhouse's return is inevitable, as per Bradford Walker, who I'd like to put over for talking about me lately. I really appreciate it. Very few people were talking about the Elite PC Challenge, but Bradford put it out there on his blog. He put me over. He made it happen. He showed people that I've got ideas. And I want you to get out there and start thinking with your PCs how you can be thinking Braunstein style, how you can bring this stuff to your game, how you can bring PvP to your game, how you can bring excitement to your game, not just get the Ruby. Don't get the Ruby, okay? Get better. Get elite. Make it happen. You're boring all of us. I'm about to jump off my roof, like I said, because I can't take this junk anymore. Get it together, think in PvP, and battle Braunstein. And thank you, Bradford Walker, for putting out there that I have these ideas. And I just want to say that's it. Make it happen. Get out there. Accept that Jeffro's got great ideas. Nothing that he said in the last couple of years I totally disagree with in hindsight, or I'm jumping on the train early so I don't have to be one of these idiots that have to apologize later. Don't be one of those idiots apologizing later. Thank the tribal chief. Acknowledge your tribal chief. Do it and submit to Rome and pray the rosary daily. Okay? Go to mass. Do all those things. And I'm going to go and throw it over to the tribal chief because he's got big things to say that all of you need to hear right now.
Yeah. I just listen to this thing from the credits from the 1979 Boot Hill. Just listen to this. Jim Gatling Gun Ward play his player character with Julio Diego Garcia. Let's see. Dave Arneson, Ben Cartwheel of the Ponderous Ranch. Gary, I Own It All Gygax, Mr. G. Terry Hotshot Kuntz, Mason Dix. Tim Elect Me Cask, Tim McCall. Ernie Scattergun Gygax, Ernie Sloan. All right. So look, those are all the usual suspects right there. They're all playing in a Braunstein style Boot Hill game. They all have over the top characters. You got some guy wants to win an election. Some guy wants to buy up all the land. You've got Dave McGarry, the guy who came up with dungeon crawling, right? His guy was Dastardly Dave Slade. Okay. Like, you don't need a module. You don't need a game design. You need players that have characters that are this dumb, right? That's what you need. The stories and the adventures write themselves when these people come in conflict with each other. So this was so obvious. This was so obvious to the guys who made this game. They gave a one-page description of Braunstein play and just assumed that you would just take the ball and run with it. Why would they have such confidence that you could do that, because Braunstein is such a great idea. It is such a great fit for RPGs. It's what RPGs were built for, was Braunstein's, and they work like magic. They're anti-fragile. The fun, you don't even have to know what's going to be fun. The players will find it. You know, when 3, 4, 5 guys in the Braunstein activity sort of converge on some dumb idea, that's your game. That's your game, and people are going to be talking about it for months. And also, you know, the same interactions are going to create other interactions. Yeah. So follow me on my blog. I do write. I'm still, you know, I prefer that you be more literate. I prefer that you be like Mike Scudderfer and become literate yourself. You can do this by reading an Appendix N book and talking about it with your friends. That's all you got to do. You start there, you'll become literate. You know, once you get to the point where you can read, you can start reading my blog, where you get constant, great information about classic RPGs and how they were intended to be played. It's a clearinghouse. We got the best people over there. We've got the best minds in gaming over there. You know, Nagora comes and drops by. He's the guy that knew that Appendix N and Timekeeper were important before I did. You know, and he comes by and he comments. So it's a great place. You know, I wish that things were a little more less taken up with YouTube shows like this. You know, I'm sad to see that people don't read and don't write. You know, but if I've got to show up, to these things in order to be part of the conversation, you know, that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah. But I do wish you guys would read.
Start reading, guys, because I can't do Dundermoose every week, okay? I'm the only entertaining person in the BroSR on a mic, so I can't do it every week. I got a family, okay? I got soup to buy. Listen to Jeffro. Learn to read his blog. Read first edition AD&D, because it's better. It's better than you. It's better than your campaign, and you know it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great night.